High Admiral Vexthar stood in the command center of his massive warship, looking at the holographic display that showed the entire Zephyrian Empire. Hundreds of star systems glowed blue, marking territories under their control. The Empire had grown powerful over thousands of years, conquering worlds and building the strongest military force in their part of the galaxy. The Admiral was tall, even for his species, with dark purple skin and 4 arms that moved with practiced precision. His silver uniform showed many medals from battles won and worlds conquered. Today, however, he was not thinking about past victories. He was angry about a message that had arrived from the Galactic Council. The message played again on the main screen. An old alien with wrinkled skin and tired eyes spoke in the common galactic language. "This is Chancellor Mordek of the Galactic Council. We are sending this urgent warning to all member civilizations and independent empires. The Sol System and all surrounding sectors are completely off-limits. No ships may enter. No probes may be sent. No contact is allowed with the species that lives there." The Chancellor paused, looking directly at the camera. "We know some of you think this. Warning is foolish. You believe your technology is superior. You think your weapons can handle any threat. You are wrong. 3 separate civilizations have already learned this lesson. None of their fleets returned. We have sealed all records of what happened to protect other species from making the same mistake." Admiral Vexthar turned off the message with an angry gesture. Around him, his senior officers waited for his response. They had all heard the same warning, and they all had the same reaction. The Galactic Council was trying to keep them away from something valuable. "This is nonsense," the Admiral said, his 4 arms moving as he spoke. "The Council wants to keep the best conquest for themselves. They speak of a primitive species that somehow destroyed 3 fleets. Impossible." Dr. Kilnara, the fleet's chief science officer, stepped forward. She was smaller than the Admiral, with bright green skin and large eyes that showed her intelligence. In her hands, she carried a data pad with everything they knew about the Sol system. "Admiral, I have been studying the limited information we could gather," she said carefully. "The 3rd planet in that system does have intelligent life. Our long-range sensors show they achieved spaceflight only 200 years ago. By our standards, they should still be using primitive rockets and simple satellites." The Admiral laughed, a sound like grinding metal. 200 years? We were building star fortresses when they were still living in caves. What could such babies possibly do to threaten real warriors? Dr. Kilnara looked uncomfortable. "That is what troubles me, Admiral. Our deep space monitors have detected something strange. Ships that went to investigate that system simply vanished. Not destroyed in battle. Vanished completely, as if they never existed. The area around their star has become what our scouts call a ship graveyard." Captain Zor Inth, the Admiral's military advisor, moved closer to the holographic display. He was a veteran of many wars, with scars across his face from battles fought with blade and energy weapon. His experience had taught him to be careful, but even he found the Council's warning hard to believe. "Admiral, I have spoken with officers from other fleets," he said slowly. "Some of them whisper stories about the Sol system. They say the first expedition that went there belonged to the hegemony of Kron, 50 ships, including their greatest dreadnought. None returned. The Kron leadership claimed it was a navigation error, that the fleet was lost in a stellar anomaly." The Admiral waved dismissively. "The Kron were always weak. Their technology was outdated even when they ruled a dozen worlds," Captain Zorinth continued. "The second expedition was sent by the Collective of Minds. They were known for their advanced artificial intelligence and quantum weapons. 100 ships entered the Sol system. The Collective reported a complete communications failure. They claimed solar radiation interfered with their signals." Dr. Kilnara added, "The 3rd expedition was the most recent, sent by the Stellar Republic only 50 years ago. They had energy shields that could protect against supernovas and weapons that could crack planets. 200 ships, Admiral. The Republic's finest fleet. The command center became quiet. Even Admiral Vexithar stopped moving for a moment. The Stellar Republic had been one of the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. Their disappearance had been a major mystery that no one wanted to discuss. What official explanation did the Republic give? The Admiral asked. They claimed, the fleet encountered a previously unknown cosmic phenomenon, Dr. Kilnara replied. But I have analyzed their last transmissions before the communication blackout. The fleet commander seemed frightened, Admiral. He spoke of weapons that defied physics and defensive systems that should not exist. Admiral Vexthar turned to look at the star chart again. The Sol system was marked in red, indicating the Council's prohibition. It was not a large system, containing only one inhabited world. By all logical thinking, it should be an easy conquest for the mighty Zephyrian Empire. Show me what we know about their world, he commanded. The holographic display changed to show a blue and green planet, the third from its star. Dr. Kyle Nara manipulated the controls to display their collected data. The planet is called Earth, by its inhabitants. They call themselves humans, population approximately 8 billion. They have one natural satellite, which they call the Moon. The planet shows signs of heavy industrial development and space-based infrastructure. The image zoomed in to show orbital stations and what appeared to be manufacturing facilities floating in space around the planet. This is interesting, the Admiral said, studying the images. For a species only 200 years into space travel, they have built impressive orbital infrastructure. But this only proves they have resources worth taking. Captain Zorinth looked worried. Admiral, perhaps we should consider why the Council is so determined to keep everyone away. What if there really is something dangerous about this system? The Admiral's eyes flashed with anger. Are you suggesting that the Zephyrian Empire should fear a species that was probably throwing stones at each other when our ancestors were building their first starships? Captain, I am disappointed in your lack of confidence. Dr. Kyle Nara tried a different approach. Admiral, what if we sent a small scouting force first? Just a few ships to observe and gather intelligence. We could learn what happened to the previous expeditions. No, Admiral Vexthar said firmly. Scouting missions are for civilizations that doubt their own strength. We are Zephyrians. We have conquered 40 star systems. Our technology is superior to anything these humans could possibly possess. We will not sneak around like frightened children. He turned to address all the officers in the command center. Prepare the full invasion fleet. 200 ships, including our newest dreadnoughts. We will show the galaxy that the Zephyrian Empire does not bow to the fears and superstitions of the Galactic Council. The officers began to move, preparing to carry out his orders. But Dr. Kilnara remained standing near the holographic display, staring at the image of the blue planet called Earth. Admiral, she said quietly, what if the Council is trying to protect us, not themselves? Admiral Vexthar laughed again, the sound echoing through the command center. Protect us from what? From a species that learned to fly between stars when our empire was already ancient? Dr. Kilnara, your scientific mind is making you too cautious. Sometimes the greatest discoveries require the greatest risks. As the Admiral walked away to prepare for the invasion, Dr. Kilnara continued studying the data about Earth. Something about the whole situation felt wrong to her scientific instincts, but she could not identify exactly what it was. She only knew that 3 advanced civilizations had sent their best fleets to this system, and none had returned to tell their stories. 2 months later, the largest fleet in Zephyrian history moved through space toward the Sol system. Admiral Vexithar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Conquest, watching the display that showed all 200 ships of his invasion force. Each vessel was a masterpiece of Zephyrian engineering, equipped with weapons that could destroy cities and shields that could withstand the radiation of dying stars. The fleet moved in perfect formation through the dark space between stars. The Zephyrians had spent decades building these ships, each one representing the peak of their technological achievement. The smallest frigates carried enough firepower to conquer most primitive worlds, while the massive dreadnoughts could crack planets if necessary. Dr. Kyle Nara worked at her science station, constantly scanning ahead for any signs of danger. Since leaving Zephyrian space, she had detected nothing unusual. No enemy ships, no defensive installations, no warnings. The journey toward Earth had been completely peaceful, which somehow made her more nervous than if they had encountered resistance. "Admiral," she called out, "we are approaching the outer edge of the Sol system. Long-range sensors are beginning to detect the planets and other objects in this area." Admiral Vexthar moved to look at her readings. The display showed a typical star system with several planets, asteroid belts, and the usual collection of moons and smaller objects. Nothing appeared threatening or unusual. "I see nothing that would concern a military force of our size," the Admiral said confidently. "Begin detailed scans of their defensive capabilities." As the fleet moved deeper into the system, Dr. Kilnara's instruments began picking up more detailed information. What she saw made her pause and check her readings several times to make sure they were correct. "Admiral, I am detecting something strange about the asteroid belt between the 4th and 5th planets. The asteroids appear to have been moved from their natural positions." Captain Zorinth joined them at the science station. His military experience had taught him to pay attention when scientists seemed worried. "What do you mean, moved?" Dr. Kilnara adjusted her sensors to get a clearer picture. "The distribution is too organized to be natural. It looks like someone has positioned these asteroids in specific patterns. I am also detecting metal structures attached to many of them." The Admiral studied the readings with growing interest rather than concern. "Show me these structures." The main display zoomed in to show several large asteroids. Attached to each one were clearly artificial constructions made of metal and other materials. They looked like some kind of installation or facility. "Mining operations," Admiral Vexthar concluded. "They are extracting resources from their asteroid belt. This proves they have advanced enough to be useful workers after we conquer them." But Dr. Kilnara was not satisfied with that explanation. She continued her scans and found something that made her blood run cold. "Admiral, these are not mining facilities. I am detecting energy signatures consistent with weapons systems. Very large weapons systems." Before the Admiral could respond, the communications officer called out from his station. "Admiral, we are receiving a transmission from somewhere in the asteroid belt. Put it on the main screen," the Admiral ordered. The display showed a simple message in perfect Zephyrian text. "Unknown fleet, you are entering restricted space. Turn back immediately. This is your only warning." The command bridge became silent as everyone read the message. Admiral Vexthar was the first to speak, and his voice was filled with anger rather than concern. "They dare to warn us? A species that should be grateful we do not simply destroy their world sends us warnings?" He turned to the weapons officer. "Target the source of that transmission and destroy it." "Yes, Admiral," the weapons officer replied, working at his controls. "Firing main guns." A massive beam of energy shot out from the flagship toward one of the asteroids in the belt. The beam was powerful enough to vaporize a mountain, and it struck the asteroid directly. For a moment, there was a brilliant flash of light as the energy discharge lit up the darkness of space. When the light faded, everyone on the bridge expected to see empty space where the asteroid had been. Instead, they saw something impossible. The asteroid was still there, completely undamaged, surrounded by a shimmering energy field that had absorbed their most powerful weapon without any effort. "Impossible," Captain Zorinth whispered. "Our main guns should have destroyed that entire asteroid." Dr. Kilnara was working frantically at her station, trying to understand what had just happened. "Admiral, the energy shield around that asteroid just absorbed our entire weapons discharge and redirected it harmlessly into space. The technology required to do that is far beyond anything in our databases." Admiral Vexthar refused to accept what he was seeing. It must be some kind of natural phenomenon. Perhaps the asteroid has unusual mineral properties that created the shield effect. Admiral, Dr. Kyle said quietly, I am now detecting similar energy shields around dozens of asteroids throughout the belt. This is not natural. Someone built these defenses. As if responding to her words, new contacts began appearing on their sensors. Objects were moving among the asteroids, coming toward the Zephyrian fleet. They were clearly artificial vessels, but their design was unlike anything in the galactic databases. Unknown ship configurations approaching, the sensor operator reported. I count at least 50 vessels of various sizes. Their technology does not match any known civilization. The approaching ships were sleek and elegant, with smooth curves that seemed to flow like liquid metal. They moved with a grace that suggested incredible maneuverability, and they were approaching the Zephyrian fleet at speeds that should have been impossible for vessels of their size. Those ships are too small to threaten us, Admiral Vexthar declared. They appear to be scout vessels or light frigates at most. Order the fleet to battle formation. We will demonstrate the power of the Zephyrian Empire. The 200 ships of the invasion fleet began moving into their attack formation, a complex arrangement that had been perfected over centuries of warfare. Each ship knew its position and role, creating overlapping fields of fire that could destroy any enemy force that dared to oppose them. But as they moved into formation, something strange happened. The approaching human ships simply vanished from their sensors. Where did they go? The Admiral demanded. Dr. Kyle was checking and rechecking her instruments. Admiral, they are still there, but our sensors can barely detect them. It is as if they have become ghosts. Suddenly, the human ships reappeared, but not where they had been before. They had somehow moved to positions throughout the Zephyrian formation without being detected. They were now scattered among the invasion fleet, close enough to touch the hulls of the larger ships. How did they get there? Captain Zorinth asked, his professional calm beginning to crack. Before anyone could answer, every screen threw out. The Zephyrian fleet activated simultaneously. A human face appeared on each display. It was a woman with short dark hair and calm brown eyes. She wore a simple uniform without the elaborate decorations that marked rank in most military organizations. I am Admiral Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force, she said in perfect Zephyrian. You have entered our space despite clear warnings. You have fired weapons at our installations. However, we are willing to give you one more chance to leave peacefully. Admiral Vexthar stepped forward to respond, but Admiral Chen continued speaking. Before you answer, you should know that we have been watching your empire for the past 30 years. We know about your military capabilities, your political structure, and your invasion strategies. We know about the 67 worlds you have conquered and the populations you have enslaved. We know about your homeworld and the location of every military base in your territory. The Zephyrian Admiral felt a chill run through his body. How could these primitives possibly know such detailed information about his empire? We also know, Admiral Chen continued, that you ignored the Galactic Council's warnings because you believed you were superior to us. You thought your technology was advanced enough to overcome any resistance we might offer. You were wrong. Dr. Kilnara was frantically scanning the human ships that surrounded their fleet. What she found made her feel sick with fear. Admiral, their ships are not just using unknown technology, they are using impossible technology. I am detecting energy signatures that violate several laws of physics. Admiral Chen's image looked directly at Admiral Vexthar through the screen. You have 60 seconds to begin withdrawal from our system. If you choose to stay, you will discover why 3 previous invasion fleets never returned home. The choice is yours. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge of the Eternal Conquest in complete silence. Admiral Vexthar looked around at his officers, seeing doubt and fear in their faces for the first time in his military career. He thought about the years of preparation for this invasion, the resources spent building the fleet, and the glory that conquest would bring to the Zephyrian Empire. Then he looked at the impossible ships surrounding his forces and the defensive installations that had effortlessly absorbed his most powerful weapons. For the first time in his life, Admiral Vexthar began to understand that he had made a terrible mistake. Admiral Vexthar stared at the screen where the human admiral's face had been moments before. Around him, his officers waited for orders, but he found himself unable to speak. The 60 seconds Admiral Chen had given them were ticking away, and he still could not decide what to do. "Admiral," Captain Zorinth said carefully, "should we begin withdrawal procedures?" The question snapped Admiral Vexthar back to reality. He was the commander of the most powerful fleet in Zephyrian history. He had conquered worlds and defeated armies. He would not be intimidated by a species that had barely learned to travel between stars. "We did not come all this way to run from primitives," he said, his voice growing stronger. "All ships, prepare for battle. Target the nearest human vessels and fire when ready." But before his weapons officer could carry out the order, something happened that froze everyone on the bridge. With shock, every computer screen throughout the ship began displaying information that should have been impossible for the humans to possess. The main display showed detailed plans of the flagship's internal structure, including the location of every weapon, every shield generator, and every critical system. Other screens showed similar plans for every ship in the fleet. The humans somehow had complete technical specifications for vessels that had been built in secret shipyards in the heart of Zephyrian space. Dr. Kylenara gasped as her science station began showing her personal research files, including projects she had worked on years ago in classified laboratories. "Admiral, they have accessed our entire database. How is this possible?" More screens activated throughout the ship. One showed a detailed map of the Zephyrian Empire with the locations of every military base, every shipyard, and every important government facility clearly marked. Another displayed lists of high-ranking officials in the Empire, including their personal information, family details, and political connections. Captain Zorinth watched in horror as a screen near his station showed information about his own family. There were images of his homeworld, his wife, his children, and even his elderly parents. The humans knew everything about him, down to his personal habits and private concerns. "This cannot be real," Admiral Vexthar whispered. But even as he spoke, more screens activated to show him information about his own life. The humans knew about his military academy training, his first command, his victories in previous wars, and even his personal relationships with other officers in the fleet. The communications officer called out in a shaking voice, "Admiral, every ship in the fleet is reporting the same thing. The humans are displaying detailed intelligence about our entire civilization." Admiral Vexthar realized that the humans had not just been watching his empire for 30 years, as Admiral Chen had claimed. They had been studying it, learning everything there was to know about Zephyrian technology, society, and military capabilities. Somehow, these supposedly primitive beings had infiltrated the most secure systems in his empire without anyone noticing. The screens changed again, this time showing historical records of the 3 previous invasion fleets that had attacked Earth. The Zephyrians watched in growing horror as the displays revealed what had really happened to those expeditions. The first invasion, by the hegemony of Kron, was shown in detailed recordings. The human defenders had not simply destroyed the Kron fleet. They had systematically disabled each ship, studied its technology, and then absorbed the crew into their defensive systems. The Kron had not died in battle. They had been captured, interrogated, and their knowledge used to prepare for future attacks. The second invasion, by the collective of minds, had met an even stranger fate. The humans had somehow turned the collective's artificial intelligence systems against them, reprogramming their own ships to attack each other. The collective's advanced quantum weapons had been reversed and used to tear apart their own fleet from within. The third invasion by the Stellar Republic was the most disturbing of all. The humans had allowed the Republic fleet to land troops on Earth's surface, then systematically studied their tactics, equipment, and strategy. Once they had learned everything they needed to know, the humans had destroyed the entire invasion. Force, using the Republic's own weapons, turned against them with improvements the humans had made. Each invasion made them stronger, Dr. Kilnara said quietly, reading the data that scrolled across her screen. They did not just defeat these fleets. They learned from them. They absorbed their technology and used it to improve their own defenses. Admiral Vexthar felt his confidence cracking as he realized the true situation. The humans had not been hiding from the galaxy for 200 years. They had been preparing. Every attack on their world had been a lesson. Every defeated enemy a source of new knowledge and technology. Suddenly, the human ships that surrounded the Zephyrian fleet began to change. Their smooth, flowing hulls shifted and reconfigured, revealing weapon systems that incorporated technology from a dozen different civilizations. Admiral Vexthar recognized weapon designs from the Kron, shield configurations from the Collective, and armor patterns from the Stellar Republic, all somehow integrated into a unified whole that was more advanced than any of the original components. Admiral Chen's voice spoke again from every speaker in the fleet, but this time her tone was different. She no longer sounded like she was offering a choice. She sounded like a teacher explaining a lesson to students who had failed to understand. "You are wondering how we know so much about your empire?" she said. "The answer is simple. We have been watching you since your first ship entered space. We have studied every transmission from your worlds, analyzed every piece of technology you have developed, and observed every military action you have taken." The Admiral tried to speak, but found his voice caught in his throat. "You see, Admiral," Chen continued, "when the first invasion fleet attacked our world, we realized something important. We were not just defending against one enemy, we were defending against the entire galaxy. Every civilization out there that might view us as a threat or a target." New images appeared on the screens, showing human installations throughout the galaxy. Hidden monitoring stations in asteroid fields, disguised observation posts on uninhabited moons, and camouflaged ships watching from the edges of major star systems. The humans had been everywhere, seeing everything, learning constantly. "We could have revealed ourselves years ago," Admiral Chen said. "We could have joined the Galactic Council and taken our place among the civilized species. But we chose to remain hidden because we understood something that the rest of the galaxy does not." The images changed to show battle recordings from conflicts throughout galactic history. Wars between different species, conquests of primitive worlds, and the rise and fall of various empires. The pattern was always the same. The strong dominated the weak, and peaceful species were either conquered or destroyed. "The galaxy is not a safe place for peaceful civilizations," Admiral Chen explained. "Empires like yours exist by conquering others. The Galactic Council exists to maintain the balance of power, not to prevent conflict. We decided that the only way to ensure our survival was to become stronger than any potential threat." Captain Zorinth looked at Admiral Vexthar with desperation in his eyes. "Admiral, we should withdraw. This is not a battle we can win." But Admiral Vexthar was staring at the screens that showed the true extent of human capabilities. He could see now that Earth was not just defended by the ships around his fleet. The entire Sol system was a fortress, with defensive installations on every moon, armed platforms in every asteroid belt, and weapon systems that defied the laws of physics as he understood them. "You have a choice to make," Admiral Chen said, her voice echoing through every ship in the Zephyrian fleet. "You can withdraw now and return to your empire with the knowledge that Earth is not a target you can conquer. Or you can attack and discover why we are called the guardians of this region of space." The Admiral looked around his bridge at the faces of his officers. He saw fear, confusion, and the dawning realization that they had sailed into a trap that had been centuries in the making. The humans had not just defended against 3 previous invasions. They had used those invasions to prepare for this moment, when the largest and most powerful fleet in this part of the galaxy would come to test their defenses. Dr. Kelnara was still studying the data streaming across her screens. "Admiral," she said quietly, "I do not think these are the same humans who achieved spaceflight 200 years ago. I think they have evolved. Their integration with artificial intelligence, their mastery of physics we do not understand, their perfect coordination across impossible distances, they have become something new." Admiral Chen's image appeared on the main screen one more time. This time she was not alone. Behind her stood representatives of dozens of other species, all wearing human uniforms, all clearly serving in the Earth Defense Force. "These are the survivors of the fleets that attacked us," Admiral Chen explained. "We do not kill our enemies, Admiral Vexthar. We offer them a choice. They can return home with the knowledge of what they have seen, or they can join us in protecting this region of space from civilizations that threaten peaceful species." Admiral Vexthar stood in silence for what felt like hours, though only minutes had passed. The weight of his decision pressed down on him like the gravity of a collapsing star. Around him, his officers waited for orders that could save their lives or doom them all. Finally, the Admiral's pride won over his growing fear. He had not built his reputation by running from battles, no matter how impossible they seemed. The Zephyrian Empire expected victory, and he would give it to them, or die trying. "All ships," he commanded, his voice carrying across the fleet communications network. "Attack Formation 7. Target all human vessels and fire at will, for the glory of the Zephyrian Empire." The response was immediate. 200 warships opened fire simultaneously, filling space with energy beams, plasma torpedoes, and kinetic projectiles. The combined firepower was enough to destroy a small moon, all focused on the 50 human ships that had dared to surround them. For a moment, space around the Sol system blazed with light as weapons discharged and explosions bloomed like deadly flowers. Admiral Vexthar watched the display with satisfaction, convinced that no ships could survive such overwhelming firepower. But as the light faded, his satisfaction turned to horror. The human ships were still there, completely undamaged. Around, each vessel's shimmering energy fields had absorbed the massive weapon's discharge and were now glowing with stored power. "Impossible!" Captain Zorianth whispered. "Our entire fleet's weapons should have vaporized those ships." Dr. Kelnara was working frantically at her science station, trying to understand what had just happened. "Admiral, they did not just block our weapons. They absorbed the energy, all of it. Their shields are somehow converting our attacks into power for their own systems." Before Admiral Vexthar could respond to this impossible development, the human ships began their counterattack. But what happened next defied everything the Zephyrians understood about space warfare. The first human ship seemed to fold in on itself, disappearing from normal space and reappearing inside the formation of Zephyrian vessels. It materialized next to one of the Empire's heavy cruisers and fired a single, precise shot that somehow passed through the cruiser's shields as if they did not exist. The cruiser did not explode. Instead, it simply stopped. All its lights went out, its engines shut down, and it began drifting helplessly through space. Whatever the human weapon had done, it had disabled the entire ship without destroying it. "Report!" Admiral Vexthar shouted. "What happened to the Crimson Blade?" The communications officer tried to contact the disabled cruiser, but received no response. "No communications, Admiral. The ship appears to be completely powerless." More human ships began using the same impossible tactic. They would vanish from one location and appear in another, always inside the Zephyrian formation, always in the perfect position to disable enemy vessels with single, precise shots. Within minutes, a dozen Zephyrian ships had been neutralized, without a single human casualty. Dr. Kelnara was studying the sensor readings from the disabled ships. What she found made her feel sick with fear. "Admiral, The human weapons are not destroying our ships. They are reprogramming them. I am detecting massive changes in the computer systems of every disabled vessel." "What kind of changes?" the Admiral demanded. "The ships are being converted," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "Their weapons, their shields, their engines, everything is being modified to work with human technology. They are turning our own fleet against us." As if to prove her point, several of the disabled Zephyrian ships suddenly came back to life, but now they were flying in formation with the human vessels, their weapons aimed at their former comrades. Admiral Vexthar watched in horror as his own ships turned against him. The converted vessels knew all the weaknesses of Zephyrian technology because they were Zephyrian technology. They attacked with precision that no enemy should possess, targeting exactly the right systems to disable rather than destroy. "All ships, fall back to defensive formation," the Admiral ordered. "Do not let the human ships get close." But the human vessels had capabilities that made traditional defensive formations useless. They could appear and disappear at will, moving through space in ways that violated every law of physics the Zephyrians knew. Some ships seemed to exist in multiple locations simultaneously, attacking from several directions at once. Others moved backward through time, firing their weapons before they had finished aiming. Captain Zorinth tried to coordinate the fleet's defense, but it was like fighting shadows. Every time they targeted a human ship, it would vanish and reappear somewhere else. Every time they tried to predict where the enemy would attack next, they found themselves shooting at empty space while human weapons struck from unexpected angles. "Admiral," Dr. Keelanara called out, "I am detecting massive gravitational distortions throughout the battle area. The humans are somehow manipulating gravity itself as a weapon." She was right. Several Zephyrian ships began spinning out of control as localized. Gravity fields grabbed them and hurled them into each other. The humans were using the fundamental forces of the universe as tools of war, turning the Zephyrian fleet's own momentum against them. But the most terrifying aspect of the human attack was not their impossible technology. It was their tactics. They fought like no species the Zephyrians had ever encountered. Where other civilizations sought to destroy their enemies quickly and efficiently, the humans seemed to be studying each ship they disabled, learning from every encounter. Admiral Vexthar realized that this was not just a battle, it was a lesson. The humans were teaching the galaxy what happened to those who ignored their warnings. They were demonstrating their capabilities not just to the Zephyrian fleet, but to every civilization that might be watching. "Admiral," the communications officer called out, "we are receiving transmissions from some of our disabled ships." "Put them through," the Admiral ordered, hoping to hear that his crews had found a way to resist the human technology. Instead, he heard the voice of Captain Helmar, commander of the heavy cruiser that had been disabled first. But something was wrong with the captain's voice. He sounded calm, almost peaceful. "Admiral Vexthar," Captain Helmar said, "I want you to know that my crew and I are safe. The humans have not harmed us. Instead, they have shown us something incredible." "Captain, report your status immediately," the Admiral demanded. "Admiral, they have shown us what our empire really is. We have spent our lives conquering other species, enslaving populations, destroying civilizations that could not defend themselves. We told ourselves it was for the glory of the empire, but it was really just brutality disguised as honor." Admiral Vexthar felt his blood run cold. "Captain, you are clearly under some kind of mind control. Resist their influence." "No, Admiral. My mind has never been clearer. The humans have access to our entire history, our complete records. They have shown me the truth about every world we conquered, every population we enslaved, every culture we destroyed. I cannot go back to serving an empire built on such cruelty." Similar transmissions began coming from other disabled ships. Crew after crew reported that they had been shown the true history of the Zephyrian Empire, and they could no longer fight for a cause they now understood to be evil. Dr. Kilnara looked up from her station with tears in her large eyes. "Admiral, The humans are not just defeating us militarily, they are defeating us morally. They are showing our people the truth about what we have done. The battle continued around them, but it was no longer really a battle. It had become a systematic dismantling of the Zephyrian fleet by an enemy that understood warfare on levels the Admiral had never imagined. The humans were not just superior in technology, they were superior in strategy, tactics, and most importantly, in their understanding of what it meant to fight for something worth defending. Admiral Vexthar looked at the tactical display and saw that only half his fleet remained under his control. The other half had been either disabled and converted or had voluntarily surrendered after learning the truth about their empire. The human ships continued their impossible maneuvers, always, staying one step ahead of Zephyrian weapons, always striking at exactly the right moment to maximize their advantage. "Admiral," Captain Zorinth said quietly, "we cannot win this battle. Our weapons cannot touch them. Our tactics are useless against their technology, and they are turning our own people against us. We must consider surrender." For the first time in his military career, Admiral Vexthar found himself agreeing with a suggestion to surrender. But even as he prepared to give the order, he wondered if it was already too late. The humans had demonstrated that they could defeat any force sent against them, but they had also shown mercy to those who surrendered. The question was whether they would extend that same mercy to the Admiral who had led this doomed invasion into their space. The battle, if it could still be called that, came to an end not with explosions or surrender, but with silence. Admiral Vexthar stood alone on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Conquest, watching as the last of his fleet was systematically disabled by the human forces. Around him, his senior officers had already been taken to other ships for what the humans called educational discussions. Only Dr. Kyle Nara remained at her science station, quietly studying the data from the battle. She had volunteered to stay, claiming she wanted to understand how the humans had achieved such impossible technological superiority. In truth, Admiral Vexthar suspected she stayed because she felt responsible for not warning him more strongly about the dangers they would face. The main screen activated, and Admiral Sarah Chen appeared once again. This time, she was alone, standing in what appeared to be the bridge of her ship. Behind her, Admiral Vexthar could see displays showing the positions of every vessel in the area, both human and Zephyrian. "Admiral Vexthar," she said, her voice carrying neither triumph nor anger, "the battle is over. Your fleet has been neutralized and your crews are safe. Before we discuss what happens next, I think you deserve to understand exactly what you encountered here today." The Admiral found his voice, though it sounded weaker than he would have liked. "You have defeated the greatest fleet in Zephyrian history. Is that not enough for your victory?" Admiral Chen smiled, but it was not a cruel expression. "Admiral, this was never about victory. This was about education. The galaxy needed to learn why the Galactic Council's warnings should be taken seriously. Your empire was chosen for this lesson because you were the most powerful and aggressive civilization currently threatening peaceful species." The display behind Admiral Chen changed to show a map of the galaxy with various civilizations marked in different colors. Red markers indicated aggressive empires that conquered other species. Blue markers showed peaceful civilizations that posed no threat to their neighbors. Yellow markers represented species that were still developing space travel capabilities. "For the past 200 years, Admiral Chen explained, we have been watching and protecting the peaceful species marked in blue. We have prevented 17 different invasions, stopped 43 raids on primitive worlds, and intervened in dozens of conflicts where advanced civilizations were bullying those weaker than themselves." Admiral Vexthar stared at the map, in shock. The human influence extended throughout the galaxy, far beyond the Sol system. They had been active everywhere, but so secretly that no one had noticed. "You have been interfering in galactic affairs for 2 centuries?" he asked. "We have been protecting the innocent," Admiral Chen corrected. Every species has the right to develop and grow without fear of conquest. The strong do not have the right to dominate the weak simply because they can. Dr. Kilnera looked up from her station. Admiral Chen, how is this possible? Our intelligence indicated that humans only achieved spaceflight 200 years ago. How could you have developed such advanced technology so quickly? Admiral Chen's expression became more serious. Dr. Kilnera, your intelligence was correct about when we achieved spaceflight. But you made the same mistake that every other civilization makes when they study us. You assumed that advancement means the same thing for humans as it does for other species. The display changed again, showing a timeline of human development. But instead of focusing on technology, it showed the growth of human cooperation, learning, and adaptation. Most species develop technology by building bigger weapons and stronger defenses, Admiral Chen continued. Humans develop technology by learning to work together more effectively. When the first invasion fleet attacked us, we realized that our greatest strength was not our individual intelligence, but our ability to combine that intelligence with artificial minds we had created. Images appeared showing humans working alongside advanced artificial intelligences, not as masters and servants, but as partners in a shared endeavor to protect their world and others. We created artificial intelligences that could think faster than biological minds, then taught them to value the same things we value: freedom, peace, and the protection of those who cannot protect themselves. Together, human creativity and artificial intelligence created technologies that neither could have developed alone. Admiral Vexthar was beginning to understand. You did not just build better weapons. You built a better way of thinking about warfare. Exactly, Admiral Chen confirmed. We learned that the best way to win a war is to make your enemies understand why they should not want to fight you in the first place. Every battle we fight is designed to teach a lesson that will prevent future conflicts. The screen showed recordings from the recent battle, but from the human perspective. Admiral Vexthar could see how every move had been calculated, not just for military effectiveness, but for maximum educational impact. The humans had not simply defeated his fleet. They had demonstrated the futility of attacking Earth in a way that would be remembered and passed on to other civilizations. What happens to my crews? The Admiral asked. What happens to me? That depends on what you choose to do with what you have learned, Admiral Chen replied. Your crews are currently being shown the complete history of the Zephyrian Empire, including records of every conquest, every enslaved population, and every destroyed civilization. Some of them will choose to return home and work to reform your empire. Others will ask to stay and help us protect the galaxy from future invasions. Admiral Vexthar felt a chill as he realized the implications. You are trying to destroy our empire from within. No, Admiral. We are giving your people the chance to see what their empire really is and make their own choices. If the Zephyrian Empire cannot survive its people learning the truth about their history, then perhaps it should not survive at all. Dr. Kilnera had been listening to every word, and now she spoke up. Admiral Chen, what about those of us who return home? What message are we supposed to carry? Admiral Chen turned her attention to the Zephyrian scientist. Dr. Kilnera, you are one of the finest scientific minds in your empire. You understand the importance of accurate data and honest conclusions. We want you to tell your people exactly what you have seen here. And what have I seen? Dr. Kilnera asked. You have seen that Earth is not a target to be conquered, Admiral Chen replied. You have seen that humans are not primitives to be enslaved. You have seen that the galaxy has guardians who will protect peaceful species from aggressive empires. Most importantly, you have seen that there is an alternative to the endless cycle of conquest and domination that has characterized galactic civilization for thousands of years. The Admiral looked at the tactical display one more time. Of his original fleet of 200 ships, only his flagship remained under his control. The rest had either been disabled and converted or had voluntarily joined the human forces after their crews learned the truth about the Zephyrian Empire. What guarantee do we have that you will not attack our worlds in revenge? He asked. Admiral Chen's expression softened slightly. Admiral, we have had the capability to destroy the Zephyrian Empire for decades. If we wanted revenge, we would have taken it long ago. We do not attack other civilizations. We only defend against those who attack us or threaten peaceful species. She paused, then continued. However, if the Zephyrian Empire continues its aggressive expansion and conquest of other worlds, we will intervene. The choice is yours. Reform your civilization and join the community of peaceful species, or continue your current path and discover what happens to empires that prey upon the innocent. Admiral Vexthar understood that he was being given the same choice that had been offered to his crews. He could return home with the knowledge of what he had seen and work to change his empire, or he could continue to serve a cause that he now understood was fundamentally wrong. "Will you escort us to the edge of your space?" he asked. "Of course," Admiral Chen replied. "But Admiral, before you go, there is one more thing you should understand. This battle will be recorded and shared with every civilization in the galaxy. The Galactic Council will receive complete documentation of what happened here, and they will add it to their warnings about the Sol system." The implications hit Admiral Vexthar like a physical blow. Not only had he failed to conquer Earth, but his failure would be known throughout the galaxy. Every civilization would learn that the mighty Zephyrian Empire had been defeated by a species they had considered primitive. "The galaxy will know that we were beaten by humans," he said. "The galaxy will know that you were educated by humans," Admiral Chen corrected. "There is a difference, Admiral. What you do with that education will determine whether history remembers this as the day the Zephyrian Empire was defeated or the day it began to reform." As the human ships escorted the Eternal Conquest toward the edge of the Sol system, Admiral Vexthar had time to think about everything that had happened. He had come to conquer a primitive world and had instead discovered a civilization far more advanced than his own, not just in technology, but in wisdom, morality, and understanding of what it meant to be truly powerful. When he returned to the Zephyrian Empire, he would face difficult,